It's Monday, January 15th. I'm Scott.
And I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we teach you about content management system.
Let's do this.
You know what I finally did today after a bunch of months of not doing it?
Why, what was that, Scott?
I got me a haircut.
Just one?
Just one.
So you're going to get the rest done next week, I take it.
Perhaps. It was kind of expensive for just one. I mean, it's not so exciting when I get a haircut because I have short hair. Well, no, it's not a possessive thing. I mean, I could have any hair length I wanted, but I keep my hair in a short style for comfort.
I say you should grow the big Jew afro out.
No, because I'll look like Einstein only without gray hair.
Nah, not so much. It looked more like just a poof.
Like an Einstein. It's an Einstein if I let it go.
Why don't you let it go? That'd be kind of awesome.
No, it wouldn't be awesome. It would be kind of silly.
Why? You'd stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, that's bad for standing out for that reason. It's much more. I know it's much more exciting if Rim gets a haircut because he hasn't cut his hair in forever. Well, not significantly.
No, I get haircuts often. I mean, my hair was down.
Yeah, but you don't get your hair short. It remains long.
God, my hair. I don't think I'll ever cut my hair long. In fact, or cut my hair short.
Yeah.
In fact, wasn't that long ago we were having a party and our good friend Conrad was here. He was trying to convince me that within a few years I'm going to cut all my hair off.
Maybe if someone drugs you.
Well, but if someone drugged me and cut it off forcibly, that's the only way I could see it happening.
Someone drugs you and you're so deranged that you do it and you think you're not doing it?
I don't know. I think I'd be more likely to, go on a killing spree or something.
Perhaps, but anyway.
More importantly, today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and apparently I'm the only person in the world to get the day off work.
Yeah, I didn't, but I had reasons to not go.
I had no idea I got the day off until just recently. I've no school I've been to, elementary, middle, junior high, college, whatever, ever gave the day off. The garbage collection came anyway. The railroad didn't count it as a holiday.
Did the garbage collection come?
I assume it did, because I don't think they recognized that holiday.
Well, we better go outside and check.
There were peak trains, everything. It wasn't even a holiday. I just happened to get the day off, which was kind of annoying. I rather would have gone to work and gotten a different day off.
Yeah, I technically didn't go to work, get the day off, but I didn't go to work.
Yeah, I just ran off into Manhattan to have some dinner with Emily.
That's good.
I got some good Thai food. Considering we got gypped on our Thai food over the weekend.
That guy did not know how to figure out how many seats he had in his restaurant.
Yeah, if the proprietors of the Sukhothai in downtown Beacon happen to listen to Geeknights, you need more confident front-end staff.
Yeah, you should know at all times what the wait will be for any number of people.
You see, I don't even care. If they just say, I don't know how long the wait's going to be, or you'll just have to wait and see, that'd be fine.
Yeah, you gotta say something.
I don't need you to lie to me, and I don't need you to spend 5 minutes coming up with a lie.
Yep. Just tell me whatever you can right away, instead of making me stand there and waiting for you to say something.
Yeah, and then saying, it'll be 15 minutes.
And it won't be.
Especially when the barbecue place down the street was empty. We could have eaten there immediately.
Yeah, we could. But I didn't really want to eat there so badly. Anyway.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about it last week since we wanted to make sure all the details were out, but now I think it's safe to talk about the fact that probably the most important announcement of all the Apple and CES whatnot was simply the iPhone.
Oh, great. We have a phone. Ta-da.
Well, one thing that I think would say the most about how I feel about this is that in Japan, no one gives one shit about this phone.
Yeah, well, what the iPhone really comes down to is that phones, and especially in the U.S., suck ass. And it's mostly the fault of the carriers and not the fault of technology not being advanced enough.
Yeah, the individual phones have a lot of power in them, and it's not at all difficult to put cool features or nice things in phones. But the carriers want to make money, so the phone has a camera. But they want to charge you $5 a month to be able to get pictures off of it. Or the phone has Bluetooth. But you want you to pay extra, or they just don't want you to even have access to it, or they only want you to be able to get your address book off of it, but not put ringtones on it.
Yeah, and the other problem, of course, is that the people who make the phones and the phone operating systems, they, don't really give a shit about the interface on your phone because 99% of people just make phone calls and do text messages and maybe take a picture. And, you don't really need a fancy, to develop a better user interface for that sort of thing, no one cares. And the smartphones are mostly used by business users who get used to whatever you give their company buys them. So you don't need a better interface to sell something to a company. You just need better security and whatever.
So the iPhone is just another one of these smartphones, basically.
Well, it's technically not a smartphone because the term smartphone means something specific to some people.
Whatever. To the
Yeah.
vast majority of
To the
people,
it's a PDA plus a phone plus a camera plus plus a camera.
maybe not
and,
even a camera. Most people, when they use the word smartphone,
and a
they
video.
just
And an iPod.
maybe. Most people's smartphone, they just think a PDA that works. They basically picture a BlackBerry.
Yeah, that's what I picture also. It's a phone and a PDA and an iPod in one device. Now, what's good about the iPhone? The user interface is awesome, or at least it looks awesome. I don't know who's used it yet. Do you know anyone who's used it yet?
Well, considering it's not out and it's not going to be out for many months.
Well, supposedly some technology journalists have gotten to use it, and I'm sure people at Apple have used it. But it's definitely better than anything I've ever seen on a handheld device.
However, it has some significant drawbacks. It costs a lot of money for what you get.
Now, granted, phones like, the price of an iPod, right, that's that quality, plus a phone that's that quality, plus a PDA that's that quality, you're kind of getting a deal. But at the same time...
In the same sense that a PlayStation 3 is a deal because it comes with a Blu-ray player.
Yeah, at the same time, while the iPhone is like $600, you could get like the Motorola Q for $100. And the iPhone's not that much better than it.
Also, the iPhone's battery lasts not so long.
Well, it's not... The problem with the battery doesn't last so long is kind of bad. I think it lasts 5 hours of calling and video watching and whatever. But the big problem is that, like on all other Apple products, you can't change the battery. So, I mean, that's on an iPod, not being able to change the battery kind of sucks. But it's not so bad because it lasts a really long time. And if your iPod runs out of battery, oh no. Well, what if you listen to music on a flight that's like a 5-hour flight, and after listening to music for 5 hours, your battery's dead, and now you can't make a phone call? Like, I mean, that really sucks. Is when you do one thing, watching video or listening to music, and it kills off your ability to make phone calls or take pictures, and that's kind of bad.
Now, plus all this, there's the issue with Cisco, who claims to have they have rights to the name iPhone, and
oh, whatever. There's so much conflicting news on that. I just don't give a shit. It's all silly.
Yeah, well, it's going back and forth. I imagine that Apple was fully aware of this, and they're using it possibly as a free publicity marketing toy or marketing tool. But in the end, the impression I get is that after the initial buzz among all the Mac fanatics about the iPhone, coverage of it pretty much disappeared from my internet in terms of the sites I go to, and there's been no more news about it.
Yeah, it was like this huge outburst of OMG to iPhone, and then quiet. And I think this is actually the reason why Apple likes to announce their products the day before they come out. That way there's a huge burst of news, and then while that burst is still going strong, people buy the product. Now, because what they want, they had to submit this, because it's a phone, to the FCC. When the FCC gets a submission, they put it on the internet. So if Apple didn't announce the iPhone, we would have found out about it from the FCC, and Apple would rather tell us about it from, at their keynote than have us find out about it on the FCC website. So they announced it early. It's not going to be out until June. So now there's a huge explosion of news, and then there's going to be this quiet time where people actually have time to think about purchasing the Apple product instead of just buying it on instinct because it looks so cool at the keynote yesterday. And that might not, do the trick for Apple.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think the iPhone is going to do very well. But that is my general
at least not
opinion.
the first iPhone. It doesn't help that the opinion of a lot of people in this country is that they want a phone that just makes calls and doesn't do anything else.
Well, considering that I'm one of those people, I always will take whatever phone is free with whatever plan I've got. And I'll sign a contract for 1 or 2 or whatever years just so I'll get a free phone.
Yep. The other thing is that a lot of the people who would make, use of all the features on this phone, like college kids and teens and 20-somethings, probably can't afford this phone. And the business people that can afford this phone can't use this phone because it doesn't support all the things that business people need, like installing Java applications or getting mail from Exchange servers.
Or Lotus or whatever.
Yeah, it just, not BlackBerry, for all, its problems, is really awesome at getting email, better than any other portable device. And while the interface for the email might be better on the iPhone, the actual, working of the email on the BlackBerry is beyond compare from anything I've ever seen.
Now that I think about it, despite all my technological leanings, I have had exactly 3 cell phones in my entire life. The first one was the size of a brick and lasted an hour. I had that when I was in high school.
Yep.
Then I got my first real like cell phone that was purely mine. It wasn't just shared with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Was the one I used up until it broke while I was on co-op for IBM.
Yep.
And then when I went back to IBM the second time, when that phone broke, is when I got the third phone, which I'm still using to this day and will probably use for another several years, unless I break it.
I just got my third phone. I had the StarTAC, and then I had that Samsung whatever, which I still have, but I'm not using, and now I have the LG.
Yeah, I remember your first cell phone sucked.
The Motorola StarTAC is actually an awesome freaking phone. If you want a phone that just makes calls, I mean, when that phone came out, it was the razor of its time. It was thinner than anything else. It was really reliable. It always got a great signal. It didn't do anything but make calls, but it made fucking calls.
I remember there being an issue. If you didn't hold the mouth part in the exact right space, it was almost impossible to hear you talking.
I don't remember that.
Well, because you weren't the one being called by you.
Well, that's tough shit for you. Anyway, I think the iPhone, the initial one, a lot of the super Apple fans with lots of money, like all the, hip Silicon Valley people will buy one. And maybe a few companies who use a lot of Apple products will be able to buy one. But other than that, you're not going to see you're not going to see Apple's predicted 1 in 100 people getting it. They expect 1% market share, which isn't shooting too far, but it's not shooting too low either.
I don't know. If I were Apple, I don't think this is the right time at all to be bringing out a product like this.
No, I think the time is right. I mean, a lot of people in this country are upset with their phones.
Yeah, and you know what? Are they really going to spend this amount of money to move to singular?
Yeah. That's the other problem is, having it only on one carrier. I mean, Apple has always made a product where the reason the iPod did so well is that anyone can have an iPod. The iPod didn't really take off until they had iTunes for Windows. Without iTunes for Windows, the iPod would be in the shitter. It wouldn't be doing very well at all. And all these non-iPod players would be doing a lot better than they are. So by having a singular only, that's going to really hold them back because there's probably a lot of people who want iPhones who are in areas where singular doesn't have service.
See, it's not... Why singular? If they had gone with Sprint or Verizon, it would have been fine.
Well, that's because we live in a Sprint Verizon area.
Which is the vast majority of this country.
Well, it's mostly the Northeast, actually.
There are very few places that get singular and don't get Sprint Verizon.
It's true, but it's sort of a different thing. The real problem here, right, is that this phone does a lot of interneting and web browsing, but they only included Edge. They didn't include HSDPA, so it's going to be slow. I mean, it has this fancy Safari web browser. That web browser is going to be slower than the one on my shitty LG phone that I just got. Well, shitty compared to the iPhone. It's not really shitty. But think about that. The $600 phone browses the web slower than the $50 phone.
I guess they imagine that you'll use the Wi-Fi capability and hook up to hotspots.
Yeah.
But you do that with your laptop.
Exactly. If there's Wi-Fi, I can freaking sit down. I mean, Wi-Fi on the phone, I agree, is useful, but yeah. The other thing is that this thing has Bluetooth, but you still need to use a wire to connect it to a computer to get songs. You can't have podcast download directly to it. It doesn't have iTunes running on it. If you get to want to buy music, you got to buy it and then put it on there with a cable, a USB cable, just like you do a normal iPod. What the hell? The PSP, which is cheaper. Believe that.
In fact, we have a lot of listeners using the PSP relative to how many PSPs there are in the world.
The PSP, which is cheaper than the iPhone and has an equivalent screen, can download podcasts directly over Wi-Fi and subscribe to them and everything. You don't need to plug it into a computer or shit. So if the iPhone, which is like 3 times the cost of the PSP, can't do that, kind of sad. Anyway, I think there's not much more to say about the iPhone.
Well, I guess we'll say something when it actually comes out or when Apple announces the changes that'll make it a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, hopefully, if they announce any changes. I imagine that we're going to be waiting for the iPhone Nano.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I just get the sense that a lot of people were rabid about the idea of an Apple phone for years and years and years.
And it's very sexy.
Every year, they were just salivate about the possible rumors of, Apple's going to definitely do it this year. No, they're definitely going to do it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally did it. Everyone went, oh.
I don't know. A lot of people are still going, weedy, 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 weedy. But those are the people who, aren't harmed by the deficiencies of the product.
Well, it's not just that. I think there aren't that many people doing that. It's just the people doing that are loud and on the Apple rumor sites.
Well, we'll find out in June.
We will.
We will indeed. All right, I got a short news. There's someone named Louise Brown. She was the first test tube baby in the entire world. She was the first person ever to be conceived by IVF. And she just had a baby. the normal way.
Wow, so much for coordinators.
Yeah, isn't that kind of... I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's a testament to how far we've come.
She looks like she's living an average American life, but, just a normal person, not special or anything. But, hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah? Well, I mean, we were actually talking about this over the weekend, which was actually a meta conversation after a bunch of us listened to an episode of our own show.
Really?
Yeah, the Parthenon thing.
Oh, that, yeah.
About how, compared to the vast majority of human existence, compared to the great majority of every human that has ever lived on this earth, as far as we know, we are gods.
All right, so think about this. They made a person in a test tube.
Yes.
Right? And then that person was born, and they wrote down what person that was, and they knew about that person. That person knew who she was. And then that person had a baby at the age of 28, pretty recently.
Yep, pictures of this baby.
They talked to that person, and they took pictures of that baby and that person, and now we have them on the internet, and we can read them and talk about them on a podcast, which we record and distribute to you over the same internets.
We've come a long way from traveling 12 miles to market and then 12 miles back, and that consisted of the majority of your summer.
That's why technologies are awesome.
Things of the day.
What you got over there?
All right, so I had a couple, like I always do. I was looking through things of the day, and I found one to trump all of them. And I believe the only thing that could trump it is my thing of the day for tomorrow.
Oh.
So I figured I got to put them in the proper order. I mean, you can't put... It'd be like riding the best roller coaster in the world and then trying to have fun on the second best roller coaster in the world. It's not going to cut it.
Exactly. You got to ride the small roller coaster and then the big one, or else it doesn't work. You just if you're going to do that, just ride the big one and go home.
So of the two clips from Japanese television...
Japanese television clips. Watch out. Woo!
Now, I'm sure you all remember an old show called Takeshi's Challenge, known in the U.S. as Most Extreme Challenge.
Yep.
It was one of those shows where it's Japanese people being forced to undergo incredible tests of strength and feats of dexterity, often involving severe injury.
And humorous consequences.
Well, this is a little bit beyond that. And it's not, normal Japanese people being thrust into these situations. It's Japanese people who are experts at things, like gold medalist gymnasts and athletes, and really people who are very much at the top of their form. And it's a lot like American Gladiators. Except that I don't think a single American Gladiator could even come close to completing...
Oh, man, American Gladiators is so awesome.
American Gladiators was one of the best shows on TV.
The best part... What was the best part of American Gladiators? It was the one where they got shooting the tennis balls at
Yes,
them, right?
And you had to go from station to station with those little guns and try to shoot the target.
And I always got pissed because most people couldn't shoot for crap. They just kept missing. And I was like, how can you not hit that giant red thing with the rocket launcher? The rocket launcher is so accurate. And it shot so far without any physical effort. Like, I could have done it.
Well, remember, most people are more afraid of those tennis balls than they are worried about hitting the thing, because the thing can run out of tennis balls. So what you want to do is just avoid enough tennis balls to get close enough to lob the grenade at it.
The thing is, the gladiators are too smart, and they'll never run out of tennis balls. After they shoot enough at you, they won't shoot unless they think they got a good shot.
I saw it happen once.
Yeah, it has happened, but most of the gladiators are too smart to use them all.
We got to do a show on American Gladiators.
Oh, shit. All right.
Because we could do American Gladiators Week.
No.
Well, on Tuesday, we talk about the game, American Gladiators.
What
on
we
the
do on
NES.
Monday?
Monday, we talk about the technology behind American Gladiators.
What technology was there? People running and jumping and ropes and platforms.
And tennis ball shooters.
Yeah, tennis ball.
Yeah, we could stretch that into at least a... Anyway, American Gladiators is crap. The new hotness, and I guess it's not that new, is the show in Japan. I didn't do any research. I don't know what the show is. All I know is that these are clips of the best contender on the show ever, Nagano, and his amazing prowess.
Yeah. I mean, once you see what this guy is doing, you say, okay, let's replace the decathlon with that, and then we'll know who's the best.
I mean, really, I think this should be an Olympic event. You set up one of these things secretly. Maybe you give people a list of types of things that could be in it. And then just whoever gets the furthest gets the gold medal.
Yep, you have an obstacle course. And, it's an obstacle course. They have to get to the end without falling off. And you just build it in a room, in some sort of building, and you have the athletes come in one at a time to do it. And after they're done, they have to stay in there until everyone else is done. And then you videotape the whole thing, of course. And then when everyone's done, You send them all home, and then you put it on TV. That way, there's no advantage of knowing the obstacles beforehand.
But watch this video. I mean, some of these things aren't even just interesting. They're downright cruel. It's like, all right, he's already tasked with something that I could not do and likely will never be able to do. It is something that looks very painful and difficult. And then they also make it go like up and down.
Yeah.
It's too much. And this guy does it just easily.
I think this guy could probably beat the Prince of Persia. Easily.
Yeah, he might be able to.
I think he could.
We'll have to save him for Thunderdome.
Oh, wow. All right, so there's this animation studio called Frederator Studios, and they have a podcast, little animations they make, and there's a TV channel called Nickelodeon, and you should probably know about them. And anyway, they combined to create this 7-minute little random cartoon animation called Adventure Time.
I'm not sure what I can say about this.
My sister showed it to me, like, oh, you got to see this. And she was all excited about it. Like, she was quoting it. She was like, algebraic, rhombus. And I was like,
mathematical. Yeah, that was totally math.
Yeah, I was like, whatever. And then she showed it to me, and I was like, WTF, mate. And, well, here it is, so you can suffer watching it also.
I really don't know what to say. Other than that, I'm disappointed that the drum set did not come into play.
That's what I was wondering, because when I watched it at my parents' house, when my sister showed it to me, I kind of stopped watching when the drum set appeared, and I assumed the drum set would come into play, and it did not, and I was very disappointed. But, yeah, if you like, weird animations...
If you are in desperate need of a catchphrase, this is for you.
Oh, yeah, this will get you a catchphrase right quick. Also, rainicorns.
I love when the dog's flirting with the rainicorn.
Yeah, that's a good part.
Yeah, it is.
That's probably the only good part.
Right, so this might sound like a somewhat esoteric topic, but it actually relates to a lot more of you out there than you might think. Because many times our friends or just people who listen to the show will ask us questions that basically the answer to any of those questions is always use a CMS. So tonight we're going to talk a bit about content management systems.
Yeah, no, we're not going to get into details about specific content management systems. We'll mention a few, but we're not going to go over a list of content management systems and tell you, the pros and cons of using each one and in what situations one is better than the other. That's for another time. Plus, we haven't used that many content management systems.
I've used 1.5.
I've used 3.5. Maybe 3.25. So we're not really qualified to do that.
No, but a lot of people have problems, mostly involving making websites, and they try to solve these problems the same way that we would have solved them in 1994.
Exactly.
And the world has changed.
Well, no, 96. There weren't websites in 94. Well, at least not for us. There weren't websites for us in 94.
No, but there were websites.
There were.
I was learning HTML in 1994.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Well, HTML, one day, someone was talking about HTML in my school, and I was like, isn't that the thing? Blah. Like, I didn't know much about it.
Me either.
And he enlightened me with this very simple statement. It's real easy. If you want something to be bold, you just put B's on either side of it. B starts it and a /B ends it. And I was like, other things other than bold? And he's like, yeah, there's a thing for everything. And I thought, oh, that's simple.
Yep.
And
yeah, so anyway, let's start talking about the way it used to be and, why do we need a content management system and what one does?
Yeah, so let's say you've got something you want to put on the internet, some sort of website information.
Well, no, if you want to make a web page, a single page, then if it's today or if it's 1997, you do it the same way. You write HTML. Well, I guess nowadays you also write a cascading style sheet, but that doesn't matter. And you put it on a web server. And then if someone visits your web server, it sends them the page you wrote, and their web browser draws it.
If you want to change that page, you just have to edit it and upload a new one.
Yep, it was pretty simple. It's simple now, it was simple then.
But let's say you want to do regular content, like you want to make a webcomic.
You want to make a website, a site with a lot of pages, and the pages link to each other, and there's stuff on the pages, and there's a lot of different URLs that people can type in to get to different pages.
Yep, so now in the old days, you would either make a whole bunch of different pages.
Yeah, you would make one web page that looked a certain way. Then you would copy that entire page and then manually edit the parts that would be different. And then you would have to modify the other pages to make the links to the new page.
So if you ever added a page to your site, you had to go to all your other pages and add the link to it.
It was pretty painful, depending on how you designed your website.
So out of this came things like frames.
Frames are bad.
But the thing is, frames solved that problem.
They solved the
then.
problem a little bit.
Well, what frames did is you could have one web page that was open in a frame on the screen. And then that web page could then, through links on it, open web pages in other frames. So you could have a navigation frame that linked to all your pages, and then whenever you wanted to add content to your main site, you'd make a new page, and then you just put a link to that page in your navigation frame or something along those lines.
Yeah, it wasn't a total solution. It made life a little easier for web developers, and it made life a lot harder for web browsers.
Yeah, also for web developers, it wasn't the greatest because a lot of people didn't really understand how to use frames.
And the design was shitty, and a lot of people used frames poorly, and frames are not good.
They're not very extensible.
No.
So I guess we'll look at the example of a webcomic because it's the easiest one. We can just use that as our metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this website with your webcomic on it. So you've got a bunch of pages, like my biography, about the characters, links to my friend webcomics, how to get a hold of me, how to buy my stuff. Additionally, you're constantly adding new content to the site.
Every day you're uploading a new picture to the website, and that picture needs its own page. It needs to also go on the front page.
It also needs to be part of your navigation, so if someone's going through the archives, they can read all of these pictures in order.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, you would make all of these pages individually and just keep updating in each one to add links to the previous one and the last one. And
so every day you would modify the front page. You would make a brand new page for that comic itself. You would modify your archives page. You would rewrite your whole news post in HTML. You would be writing HTML. You couldn't just write it. You had to also be thinking about the HTML and what you were writing at the same time. Even if you were using a cascading style sheet, so you don't have to worry about the style of what you're writing, you still have to constantly be going like P at the beginning of the paragraph / P at the end of the paragraph. Whenever you make a link, you had to go href. It's kind of annoying to do that, and it sucks. And if you mess up, you got to go back and mess with it again.
Now, this was before the advent of what we like to call dynamic HTML, or just dynamic web pages.
Mm-hmm.
Database-driven.
Dynamic HTML is something different.
Yeah.
But PHPs and CGIs and Perls and Pythons and Rubies and the ability of web servers to run code to dynamically generate web pages.
So very simply, before you'd make the web page. If someone went to your site, they would see the web page. Now, with these content management systems, with these techniques, we'll get a little ahead of ourselves there.
Yep.
You make the instructions for the web server to make the web page, and then you put the data in a database or something.
Yes. For example, let's say I make a webcomic, and all I do is I have a folder full of webcomic images. They're just JPEGs, and the names of the files are the date. Well, I make a little program, and I say, program, look at the current date, and then go and get the comic of that date and display it. So now someone visits my web server and they say, hey, web server, give me the home page. And the little instead of just giving them the page, which is what, just that HTML I wrote by hand, the program would run, and the program would pick the newest webcomic or the current webcomic and give it to them.
Yeah, it would basically write a web page on the fly for every single visitor who came to the site based on whatever parameters you gave it.
Yeah, you could also do something like, okay, hey, program, look at the URL the person typed in. Does that URL have the date in it? If the date is in the URL, get the comic for that date. Now I've only written one little program, and I've written one web page, but depending on what URL the person types in and what date it is, what's on the pages will change.
So what are the benefits of this as it is now? Now, instead of having to make manual web pages, so your content and your design are intertwined and you're constantly meddling with both of them, now you have a thing that will present the data, and you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is mark up the data itself and put it in a format that the thing will understand, and it'll take care of the rest.
Yep, so whether it's a webcomic or a blog post, if you want to make more stuff for your website, you don't actually need to modify your website. You just make a text file with your blog post, or you make an image with your webcomic, and you upload it into the right folder, and bam, you've got your stuff going on.
Now, that's great and all, but it still requires a lot of technological know-how to set up And it doesn't remove a lot of because now you still have to interact with the database. You still have to interact with these directories. You still have to deal with each individual item that you're putting up.
Yeah.
The system takes care of the presentation, but you still have to do the back end work.
So what do? We make a content management system. Now, if you want to still do the back end work, there are sort of these halfway light content management systems that exist, like Bloxom. I don't know how to pronounce it. Blossxom. Bloxso. I don't know if the X or the S comes first. It doesn't matter. There are things that do that. But for people who don't have the time to deal with that, like a single Perl script to manage their whole website, you use things like WordPress and Drupal and Blogger and Movable Type and Emotion Engine, and I can't think of any others right now, but there's a lot of them. What do these do? Well, they use a database to the fullest abilities and an administration interface, and it's all super powerful.
So now you've got this set up, and it takes care of the front end and the back end. So basically, all you have to do now is create your content in the system, and it'll take care of the rest. So instead of having to interact with the low-level back end, once it's set up, like look at our podcast. We've run WordPress. WordPress is running.
It's sort of like we have a web server. We install this program on the web server called WordPress. Then we log WordPress automatically. We have a database server also. WordPress automatically does its thing with the database server. We just had to tell it where the database server is. So it's keeping a lot of information in the database. We visit the WordPress website. We log in. Then we see a box. The box says, do this, do that, do this. So if I want to make a new post for the podcast, I go, new post, and there's a box. And I type the new post in the box, and then I click publish.
It creates an environment where you can do all of the editing and writing or whatever you need to do for your content without having to interact with the technological aspects of it.
So you make your website once. You make one theme for your website. You only have to design the header once, the footer once. What you want posts to look like, what you want the archives to look like. You design all those things just one time. And then from then on, you go and you log into your website, and there's an administrator's interface, and you make new content. And people can post comments and forums and whatever your CMS offers.
So since these things exist, even though a lot of people don't seem to know about them, the next time, if any of you are thinking of making some sort of website or something, and you have to ask someone, like you want to know how to make your navigation or how to make your site, and you want to use Dreamweaver or you want to make a web page the old school way, and you ask anyone like us, the answer is pretty much going to be use a content management system. There's no reason to make pages by hand anymore.
Yeah, too many people just do things the old school way, and they cause themselves unnecessary grief. I mean, look at how many people out there, I see them, they're looking up the specifics of how to make an RSS feed, and it's like, dude, if you use a content management system, it automatically makes your RSS feed. You don't need to do anything. That's the power of having your website in a database and such, being handled by some application that some other guy wrote.
Yeah, it's fully extensible because all the data's there. So we've got our WordPress, and we tag all of our episodes, say, with different things. So you can click on anime and get every post we've ever made about anime. Say we want to make a special feed that has, I don't know, every board game episode we've done. We want to make a special thing about board games or a special board game section. Mm-hmm. We don't need to do anything. It's already all there. All we need to do is make a page that draws all the board game episodes together and formats them however we want.
Yeah, I mean,
so you can change your website completely without having to change anything behind the scenes.
Yeah, if your content, that belongs on your website, your articles, your pictures, the things that people are coming to your website to see, if they are all organized, in a database or on a file server in a way that makes sense to a computer, then the content management system can present them in whatever way it is told to do. And they do it in a very clever way, and you don't need to work on that shit anymore. No HTML writing is necessary unless you want to make a theme. No PHP programmings are necessary unless you want to make a plugin or a theme. It's all done for you. Stop making websites by hand, you fools. Why are you causing yourself this pain, and why are you asking me to help you do things the bad way? Why?
I mean, it seems like especially a lot of organizations, like most anime conventions even, seem to just make a website by hand, and they have a lot of trouble with it, and then whenever the webmaster changes or a new year comes, There's always all sorts of confusion as to, well, who designed this, or this part doesn't work with that, or we need to rewrite that page, we don't have access to it, and none of that's a problem if you use a CMS.
Nope. It's like if you want to change the way your page looks, well, there's a theme, and the theme is like, very simple. There's the header. If you modify the header changes on every page. You only need to change it once. None of this copying it onto every single freaking page. Maybe one time you mess up and now there's a broken page somewhere on your site. None of that business happens.
And remember, a lot of people, they hear CMS or content management system, and the first thing they think about is, oh, that only works if you want to make a blog. That's the basic format that all these make by default. You can use these content management systems to make all sorts of sites that don't look anything like blogs.
Yeah, I know. A lot of times if a site uses a popular content management system like, Movable Type, WordPress, or Drupal, you can recognize it because they have the default themes, and the default look and feel of sites that running those CMSs. But you can change the themes a lot. I mean, I'm pretty sure Twit.tv runs on Drupal, and it doesn't look like anything that any other Drupal sites.
Plus, I mean, we're working on an updated Geeknights site, and it's not going to look at all like it looks now when we're done with it.
No, not at all, It's like you can have anything running in the back, and the people who are actually coming to visit your site will have no idea what's going on back there if you don't want them to know. Plus, you look if a CMS has too many features, it's better to have one with too many features than one with not enough features. If it doesn't have enough features, then you need to start hacking at it to do plugins and shit, and it's a pain in the ass. If your CMS has too many features, you can just disable the features you're not using. I mean, I know a lot of sites that run Drupal, which has a forum, they don't use that forum. You just don't even know what's there. I mean, it's in there somewhere, but no one's using it, and there's no links to it or anything. It just pick the CMS that's right for you. A lot of them out there kind of suck, but we're not going to get into specific ones or anything. I already said that. But yeah, CMSs, they are for the people who make the smart web pages.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.